Someone asked me uh, indirectly, how is 8 gigabytes of RAM on an Apple Silicon Mac enough to run Thinkorswim? So I did an experiment to see how much memory it takes. So right now I'm using about 16 and a half, well, 16, let's say 16 and a half gigabytes of RAM. And so I'll fire up Active Trader Pro in another monitor. And one thing about Active Trader Pro, it does take a while to get started, and then once it gets started, it takes a while to pull up my windows. I do not have a complicated setup because Active Trader Pro kind of gets finicky if you put too many windows on it. But we're at 21 already. The window hasn't come up yet. So for a simple setup, we went from 16.5 to 20. Let's say 23.5. So we have about 7 gigabytes of RAM, which is a lot, especially if you have an 8 gigabyte system. Now, if we look here, we see it takes up 2.7 gigabytes of RAM just for the program itself. And then you have these WINE preloaders. So that's 3.3, 2.8, or 600, plus another, let's say 575. So you have another, let's say 1.2 gigabytes of RAM plus this. So you've got almost 4 gigabytes of RAM that shows up in Activity Monitor for process, and then I suspect the other RAM is maybe related to Rosetta, and it doesn't show it to you on the Activity Monitor in the processor section. But oh wow, so we're at 23.80. Well, let's just say 23.5 because it's just jumping around. So basically, yeah, 7 gigabytes of RAM. I'll just shut down Active Trader Pro. And we're back down to, almost 16.6. I'm sure that, yeah, we're back down to 16.6. So a relatively basic ATP setup takes up about 7 gigabytes of RAM. My guess is that that'll run fine in a 16 gigabyte system, perhaps with not a lot else running. I did used to run ATP and Thinkorswim in an M1 Mac Mini with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and it ran fine with that setup. But if I added a lot of other things like my usual office stuff, then it didn't run so well. So my recommendation on running ATP on M1 Macs is get at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. If you're going to be running I just place trades on Active Trader Pro. I don't really run analytics on that. I run my analytics on Thinkorswim because if I ran all my analytics on Active Trader Pro, I think it would kill my system regardless of what I have. It just does not seem to like having a ton of windows and a ton of studies. And that's it. I think if you're trading professionally, you really need to size your hardware well, because you also need to pick the software products that you're going to be using well, because it really stinks if you spend $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 on a computer and you find that it's not appropriate for what you're doing. It's a lot easier if you kind of size it properly the first time around. Apple is pretty good with returns, so you could buy something, and if it doesn't work out, then you can return it in 14 days. But um, the process of buying one, bringing it home, setting it up, testing it out, and then if it doesn't work out, packaging it up, bringing it back, buying something bigger is typically a pain in the neck for most people. Okay, this is Active Trader Pro running on my 2015 iMac running Monterey operating system. As you can see, Active Trader Pro is using up 2.09 gigabytes. There are these WINE 64 preloaders and maybe some other stuff. So we're taking 1776 gigabytes. Well, let's just let it settle for a bit. Looks like it's, well, let's see. We'll just call it 17.75. Next, we're going to kill this. $17.75 to 14.2. Well, 14.3. Let's call it 14.2. So the difference is let's just say 3.5 gigabytes. So definitely a decent chunk of memory. But the nice thing about Intel Macs is it's pretty easy to, well, some of the Intel Macs, particularly the 27-inch iMacs, it's pretty easy to throw RAM in, and the RAM is cheap. So this one came with 32 gig. I could put 64, but I don't need to. So we're at, well, yeah, let's call it 3.6 gigabytes. So we got 7 gigabytes for Apple Silicon, 3.6 gigabytes for Intel macOS, and next up will be Windows. Okay, and so now we get to Windows. So I have my Windows 10 custom build with the i7-10700, and this sucker's got 120 gigabytes of RAM, so memory's never a problem. This is what it's using with Active Trader Pro not running. So 5.5 gigabytes. This is with Active Trader Pro running, 6.6 gigabytes. So Active Trader Pro was taking up 1.1 gigabytes, and this is the process display. And you can see it's using 1 gigabyte and a little, but I guess this display on Activity Monitor seems to round up. But anyway, we've got 1.1 gigabytes on Windows, 3.6 gigabytes on Intel Mac, and 7 gigabytes on Apple Silicon Mac. So yeah, if you want to run Active Trader Pro and you want to keep it all in memory, you better get more than 8 gigabytes of RAM. This was actually a fairly stunning revelation to me. In the jump from 1.1 to 3.6 is 2.5 gigabytes, but it takes the 2.5 gigabytes to support just WINE. And then to go from 3.3 gigabytes to 7 gigabytes is a difference of 3.7 gigabytes. It takes that extra RAM to run Rosetta 2. So I guess we can say running WINE and Rosetta 2 is really expensive in terms of RAM. If you've got an 8 gigabyte machine, I think I'd go to 16 or probably better 24 or 32. I suppose you could just have some of the stuff swapping, but I would guess that some things could be extremely slow in that case. Anyway, this was kind of a fun thing to do. I had to get my Windows desktop running. I haven't used it in a year, so I had to put it back together again. And then what happens when you turn on a Windows machine that you haven't used in a year? You spend 10 hours running Windows updates, and Windows 10 has a bug in it. Um, it can't update to January 2024 because there's some funny partition that has to be increased, and you have to do that manually, and it's somewhat technical, intensive procedure. So something I'm going to go through just to keep my Windows machines a little bit up to date. But yeah, if you're running Apple Silicon and Active Trader Pro, get yourself some memory.